Joining us now, Dovid Efune, who is Managing Director of GJCF. Tell us what that is.
The GJCF is an umbrella organization, one of the largest Jewish news organizations in this country, the Algemeiner newspaper, and we've been able the fastest growing, actually, in the past.
Some have. You know, my cousin was just on the channel as your Mideast expert about while we were actually
sitting
here. Aaron Miller, yeah, he wrote a book called The Much Too Promised Land.
Okay.
He was a Mideast peace negotiator for 25 years for the State Department.
So you're going to be paying attention to this, Liz. I know you're going to be paying attention to it. Let's talk about. I want to talk in particular about the president's approach to Middle East peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Some have criticized him quite severely for his approach, throwing in a demand that the Israelis stop their settlements as a condition, precondition to discussions. Your view?
Well, there's absolutely no question. I mean, first of all, the president's certainly been placing the bulk of the blame and the pressure on the Israeli side. But what's really sad and what's a real problem is that we keep going around in circles. It's the same over and over and over again. And what Israelis are faced with is, number one, a Palestinian leadership that has an on-again, off-again relationship with the truth. I mean, one only has to read what was written in the New York Times, Mahmoud Abbas's editorial. I mean, it was so fantastical. It could have been, you know, the 10th volume of Harry Potter.
Give me one example.
I mean, first of all, he mentioned that he was forced by Israelis from his home. He's previously admitted on July 6, 2007 in an interview that that was not the case. They left on their own accord. Additionally, he indicates or implies that there was an existing Palestinian state, and the Arab armies invading Israel at its inception in 1948 was a response to an Israeli effort to evict Palestinians from their home.
Who was this?
In actual,
Who was this that wrote this?
It was in the New York Times.
Mahmoud Abbas.
Wait a minute.
Correct. The PA President Mahmoud Abbas. So what the Israelis are faced with really is an international community and a president which is pushing in a certain direction, when the realities and the facts on the ground are that they don't have anybody to talk to.
Ellen is itching to jump in.
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm a Zionist. I believe in the state of Israel. The first chemical plant that was in Israel actually was born in our living room in Cleveland, Ohio. So I have a long history. But on the other hand, when you say somebody was forced from their home and they left on their own, come on, you and I know that there are in Israel, and what happened is because of the birth of the Israel in 48, people were actually forced from their homes, whether they left on their own because of what was going on in terms of the war symptoms or not. There was that. That being said, I mean, you know, junk happens, so to speak. Well, there's movies of it happening.
It's very, very important, and you know, I think this is a huge failure of the current administration. And one of the failures of the Cairo speech is the ongoing refusal to view the Palestinian-Arab and the general Arab-Israeli conflict in a historical context. And really, you know, the question is, what are the origins of this? You know, Israel has been the Jewish homeland for 3,000 years. How did this conflict originate and how did it take place? You know, Jerusalem was not under Israel was not under the control of any Arab governments. I mean, it passed from the Ottoman Empire to the British, and there were a lot of land that was being divided up at the time. And what was agreed upon was that the Arabs would get some and that the Jews would get some. That's pretty straightforward. The Arabs have got a lot, whether it was Syria from the French or Jordan from the British, and now they want to take the rest of it, and it's in all of their constitutional mandates, including the Fatah constitutional mandate.
But what about going back to the 67 borders?
I have to say this, just to break through this, how do you negotiate with a partner who has said plainly over and over again that you should not exist?
Yeah. See, this is Dovid.
You can't get beyond
Liz
that.
brings up a really good point now. The Palestinian Authority, Fatah, has now struck a deal with Hamas. And Hamas still, if you look at his charter, and you can look at it online, they are still dedicated to the destruction of Israel and killing Jews. Now, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem, but it's not a surprise, you know, because they've been talking about it before, and you know, our belief certainly is that they have a lot more in common with each other. It's not often brought to the fore because it's well known what the Hamas constitution says, but the Fatah constitution in Article 12 also calls for the entire eradication for the State of Israel. And the ongoing insistence of the Palestinian leadership on the refugee issue, which calls for 8 million or so Palestinian refugees to be resettled within the borders of Israel, exclusive of 1967 borders, is a representation of their ongoing will to bring the state of Israel to an end as a Jewish state.
I want to ask you two questions.
Exactly.
What about returning to the 67 borders? And what about the fact, and I've been to the West Bank, where you see these settlements that stick out like a sore thumb and shouldn't be there?
Returning to the 1967 borders. Sorry, did you want to?
No, go ahead. It's your start here.
Go ahead. Returning to 1967, you see, it's pretty clear to the Israelis, again within the historical context, that the concept of the 1967 borders is really a platform for further aggression. In fact, in the op-ed in the New York Times, Abbas, one of the other things that he mentioned was that the 1967 borders should be a starting point for negotiations, sure. And there's talk within the administration that Obama will actually come out and endorse that, whether today or at a later date. But it is clear by every single state, and specifically the refusal to accept Israel as a Jewish state, that the 67 borders is just the beginning. And in fact, in 1974 in Cairo, I believe, the Arab League put together what they call the phased plan, which highlights exactly this idea that while trying to failing in invading and conquering Israel militarily in 1967 and 73, their next plan would be do as much as you can diplomatically and use that as a launching pad to take over the rest of Israel.
What do you think about my cousin Aaron Miller, was just on Fox News 5 minutes ago, saying that the United States sometimes was not an honest broker in some of these, particularly under the Bush administration?
Absolutely. I'm a huge fan of your cousin, and we have spoken a few times. I don't know if he remembers me.
You didn't realize you were going to be here to talk about her cousin, did you?
I did not, but it's a pleasant surprise. One of the great things that he has contributed, I think it was in an article for the New Atlantic, if I remember correctly, it was a 5,000-page essay called The False Religion of Peace. And what he wrote in that is that within the State Department, and certainly within this administration, there are certain assumptions about this conflict which are almost religious in nature to the extent that there may not be a way of explaining them. One of them, of course, is that Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the source of all trouble in the Middle East, which we've seen now is absolute nonsense. And the other one is that a resolution will bring an end to conflict, and that will be, that people will stick to their agreements and trust in the good faith of some of the parties involved, specifically the Palestinian side. And they've betrayed that so many times. It's unbelievable that people are still having the same discussions.
Well, you're surrounded by fanatics, for one thing, and so I mean, go back to Jimmy Carter. I mean, how much good faith was there? But
Israel. I mean, I hate to say you have a yum because you're obviously Orthodox, but my other cousin who lives in Israel with 8 kids and is an Orthodox said to me, "I'm not going to vote in this election. This land is mine. God gave this to me, and it's mine." So, what do you do about that position? And there's a lot of people in Israel that
I would love
that.
to be at your Seder. Yeah. You must have a fantastic family gathering.
Yeah, it must be interesting.
I mean, for me, look,
go ahead,
I would say the question is very simple. According to Jewish law, the preservation of human life is on the top of the agenda. There are only three things that can override that. Holding on to the state of Israel, whether it says so in the Bible or not, is not one of those 3 things. The only thing on the agenda here, and the real question has to be, ultimately, what will preserve human life? And in order to find that out and discover what the answer is, we have to speak to military experts, because they're the ones that understand the geopolitical situation, they understand the ramifications of every move, and they understand what the consequences will be. And all of them have said time and again that any territorial concessions at this point, or in general, will just end in more bloodshed, more violence, and an effort to take more territory or further concessions.
And I also think that people don't have a sense, unless they've been there, how small Israel is in terms of, square miles. I mean, you can't just keep giving up land.
Right. I was there during the Second Intifada as a correspondent, and throughout Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, and when I eventually left, I came away with a very distinct impression that not during my lifetime are we going to see these very contentious, if not intractable, problems resolved of not just borders, but the settlements, the right of return,
water,
capital, yes, everything. I mean, and people there on both sides are so passionate, dogmatic, sometimes to the point of being naive. And I just think it's not going to happen while I'm alive. But someday.
It won't, unfortunately.
All right. I want to say so many thanks to Dovid Efune, Managing Director of Algemeiner. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Correct.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Very
Come
famous.
back, because there's so much to talk about. I wish we had more time. We ran out of time today.